Herobrine. I'm sure you all know him, Minecraft's mythical being who spread by word of mouth throughout the community, sending chills down the spines of every player at just a mention of him. Herobrine has proven to be more than just a simple urban myth, becoming almost as universally known as Minecraft itself. If you ask somebody who played Minecraft during 2012 and 2015, I guarantee you that they would have some knowledge of Herobrine, maybe even claiming to have had an experience with him. But this is what's most interesting. During 2012 to 2015, Herobrine was not only a well-known Minecraft legend, but was also a super popular trend, and dozens of videos, stories, and content was being produced that was centered around him. Back then, it was common for people to believe he was real, but these days, that's anything but the case. So why was Herobrine able to haunt a generation of Minecrafters? How did he gain so much attention in the first place? And why did his urban legend die out? Well, today we're going to cover all that and more. But before we do, we need to talk about the history of Herobrine and where the legend began. On an unknown date in 2010, an anonymous user made a post to 4chan's paranormal board, or X. The post was a horror version of popular copypastas, which is called a creepypasta. They are basically segments of text that get copied and pasted all around the internet. But this creepypasta was new. The unknown author's story goes like this. I had recently spawned a new world in single-player Minecraft. Everything was normal at first. As I began chopping down trees and crafting a workbench, I noticed something amongst the dense fog. I have a very slow computer, so I have to play with tiny render distance. I thought it was a cow, so I pursued it, hoping to grab some hides for armor. It wasn't a cow though. Looking back at me was another character, with the default skin, but his eyes were empty. I saw no name pop up, and I double checked to make sure I wasn't in multiplayer mode. He didn't stay long, he looked at me and quickly ran to the fog. I pursued out of curiosity, but he was gone. This was the first ever sighting of Herobrine on record, and also the first screenshot or image containing him. However, he was not even known as Herobrine yet. The creepypasta went on to talk about the player beginning to find random and unusual structures in his world after seeing him, including 2x2 tunnels, small perfect pyramids made of sand in the ocean, and groves of trees with all their leaves cut off. He never saw the mysterious figure again though, even after increasing his render distance and searching for him. Curious and slightly frightened about the supernatural events he had witnessed in his world, the player went onto the forums to ask if anybody else had seen him. His post was supposedly deleted within 5 minutes by a user of the name Herobrine who messaged him telling him to stop, and upon trying to visit this mysterious user's profile, it 404'd. He was then contacted by another user who said he had seen similar in his world and had a small directory of other users who had also seen him, and their worlds also contained these strange structures. Other players who encountered him decided to look into the name Herobrine, discovering it was frequently used by a Swedish gamer who supposedly was Notch's brother. The original poster emailed Notch asking if he had a brother, to which Notch responded, "I did, but he is no longer with us." And that's where the legend began, and the infamous Herobrine story was born. But before we continue though, consider subscribing. No pressure. Anyways, at the time Minecraft wasn't nearly as popular as it is today, and the post was only on 4chan really. This is where the urban myth began spreading by word of mouth, and it wasn't long until somebody decided to make a video, or rather live stream, of their encounter. On the 30th of August 2010, on an old streaming website called livestream.com, a user by the name of Copeland, who was part of a streaming duo called Brocraft, streamed a strange and terrifying encounter. A few days before the livestream, Copeland photoshopped this image of his base to include Herobrine in it, as you can see down the bottom, and he put this image into his chat. He states in a later email that he got a lot of good reactions from people, and he knew he had to do a stream involving him. This is where the famous clip comes from, and unfortunately the rest of the stream is lost to time. Anyways, in the clip you can see Copeland run into a house and see Herobrine. He states that this was a texture pack which he made using a Photoshop picture of Herobrine as a painting. He intentionally avoided that house for around 1 to 2 hours to make it seem legit. As he ran into the room with Herobrine in it, he screamed on stream and ran out, turning off the stream and pretending it crashed or was hacked. At the end of the stream, all viewers were redirected to a creepy picture of Herobrine with moving eyes, with an encrypted secret message. He pretended to be all shook up and scared in chat, making a post on the forums to get a rise out of them as well. A few hours later, he got rid of the texture pack secretly and then deleted the world on stream, vowing never to play it again. While that was the end of Copeland's adventures with Herobrine, the myth had just begun. Copeland's post on the forums gained a lot of traction, getting 35 pages of responses before it was deleted, with majority believing what had happened. Another streamer on the website called Paddy Moose also did a fake Herobrine livestream, which is nowhere to be found online, but according to Copeland, it featured Herobrine standing over a small man-made lava pool, likely being a retextured door. Paddy Moose would run away pretending to be scared, where his livestream would also crash. Later on, after resuming his stream, he can be heard talking to his wife, telling her that he was trolling and that Herobrine wasn't real, and since Copeland disliked that, he posted links to the moving Herobrine in chat. Fortunately, they were only small streamers, and while word of Herobrine began spreading fast, Paddy Moose's accidental slip-up, proving Herobrine wasn't real, didn't. And just like that, the Herobrine myth was saved. The myth spread like wildfire, with thousands of people emailing and tweeting at Notch and other public figures, forcing them to make statements. Notch often would have to tweet out that Herobrine was not real, and that they had no plans of adding him to the game, but many people just did not listen. In fact, Notch was so surprised by the sheer amount of people who continued to believe Herobrine was real, even after he stated that he wasn't, that he publicly said that Herobrine is awesome and scary at the same time. He said that it really shows how little control a content producer has over their own game. After he continued to be bombarded with the question on Twitter, he even somewhat conceded to the majority, saying that Herobrine is real and the only way to stop him is to ignore him. It was clear that at this point, Herobrine had surpassed myth status and had cemented himself as a Minecraft legend. But how did he do this? How did he get so much attention? Well, besides the insane amount of community content being produced around him, Mojang also began getting in on the joke. The developers began jokingly adding the famous removed Herobrine in each Minecraft update changelog, first seen in the beta 1.6.6 update notes all the way back in May of 2011. This trend has continued all the way up into this year, with it most recently being mentioned in the Java 1.16.2 patch notes. Now, besides public recognition from Mojang further pushing the legend of Herobrine to younger, more impressionable audiences, the old Minecraft launcher used to have the patch notes immediately appear as soon as you opened it. Now think about it like this. If you were relatively new to the game, which was common as the game was peaking in popularity during 2012 and 2013, then you may have read the patch notes which showed up as you opened the Minecraft launcher and thought to yourself, who is Herobrine and why do they keep removing him? This would have led you to do some googling if you're curious enough, and this search would have likely led you to a false conclusion, as back then majority of information about him was false or misleading, and this may have caused you to believe in him. Basically, the fact that Mojang kept including Herobrine in the patch notes simply brought more and more attention to him. And this attention wasn't positive, as they never publicly stated or had anywhere that Herobrine wasn't actually real, so all the information players would find would be from other players. Not only did Mojang include Herobrine in the patch notes of almost every update, but they also began including him in official art or brand images, further cementing his spot in the game. Now, while the developers certainly helped bring more and more attention to Herobrine, they were far from the leading cause. If you search up the term Herobrine on YouTube and sort by view count, you can see that there are countless videos with 50 million plus views, an absolutely insane amount. There are hundreds of animations which have crazy amounts of views, and some sighting videos such as this one have as high as 67 million views. Even ignoring all the weird and suggestive animations, there are a bunch of other Herobrine videos easily at 10 million views. So the point I'm trying to make is that he was super popular on not just YouTube but also on the internet, and I'm sure there are dozens of you watching this video that first heard about him simply due to the fact that the video of a sighting or something got recommended to you back in the day. And the reasons these videos became so successful, especially the sighting videos, is because it became really easy to fake them. In the early videos and screenshots we covered, while they may have been convincing back in 2010, anybody who looked at them now would see straight through them. But as we move into 2011 and 2012, with the popularity of not only animations, but the ease of access of multiplayer and the ability to change skins, you could basically completely fake it, and back then many young kids would have believed it. The addition of mods to the game, such as the Herobrine mod, which gave you a way to actually summon Herobrine into the game, blurred the lines between fake and legitimate video footage, with many newer or younger players believing that you could summon him in the vanilla game. All of these factors combined meant that not only was Herobrine a common presence on the internet and YouTube, but he was now easier to make real or believable, and many of the new players coming to the game wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So we now know how it was possible to make so many people believe he existed, and that the many fake videos and other content became very convincing. But the weirdest thing is that many people would report or say they had seen Herobrine in their world, even though he didn't exist. Many people would tell stories and pass on tales of Herobrine entering their world and tampering with it, even though he never existed. I myself back in 2012 have a few memories of being terrified because I thought Herobrine was in my survival world, and so do many of my followers on Twitter. So it's obvious that this wasn't an uncommon thing. So why were all these players seeing things and claiming that Herobrine did them, even though he didn't exist? Well, there are a few reasons. First of all, during the early days of the game in 2010 and 2011, the game for the most part was still in alpha or beta, and due to this there were a lot of bugs and issues. These bugs and issues could be quite unique and random, and were often attributed to Herobrine. Also, when many people's worlds got updated to beta 1.8, the terrain generation style changed and many new biomes and features were added. This would have created chunk borders, glitch biomes affecting the grass, and a range of other weird occurrences. Often these weird but normal occurrences were blamed on Herobrine. As the game continued to get more and more updates after full release, there were even more bugs and glitches which could lead people to believe that Herobrine was tampering with their world. Furthermore, Minecraft's terrain generation can sometimes form weird or unique structures which are uncommon. It is entirely possible for a sand pyramid or cross to naturally form or generate in deserts or oceans, and it is also possible to find strange looking holes and digouts which look man-made. I personally have a similar story to this. Back in 2011 when I first started the game, I was playing normally and stumbled upon an abandoned mineshaft for the first time. Now, considering much of the information I had in the game was from X's Adventures in Minecraft, who played the game before abandoned mineshaft existed, I didn't know what this weird man-made structure was, and I was terrified. I instantly thought that this was Herobrine's doing, and was so scared that I called my parents to my computer and deleted the world. And this isn't uncommon. It became common for players to blame Herobrine for the occurrence of normal but unlikely Minecraft events, such as the lava pool burning down a forest, a random sheep or cow taking fall damage, or even Minecraft cave noises playing. And people would begin telling stories about these somewhat unlikely Minecraft events and how Herobrine had caused them, leading other players to instantly think Herobrine was in their world whenever these events happened to them. It was a chain reaction effect of misinformation that spread so quickly, allowing Herobrine to cement his spot as a legend. But while he was once considered a legend, the tale of Herobrine is interpreted a lot differently today. There are less new players being introduced to the game for the first time, meaning that less players are falling for fake stories and videos. And long-time players such as myself immediately remember Herobrine as a nostalgic figure in our past who we now know never existed. Players became smarter, and instead of instantly blaming Herobrine for unusual events, they would logically trace what happened, often coming to a proper conclusion. The player base grew wise and can spot fake Herobrine videos from miles away now. Less content is also being made about Herobrine these days, and the Minecraft patch notes no longer immediately appear when opening the launcher. Far less attention is brought to him. Newer players just don't really hear about him like new players did in 2012. For example, I have two friends which I introduced to the game in 2018, and after playing for over a year and watching many videos on YouTube, they still didn't know who Herobrine was when I brought him up. It's also that a lot of the mystery around the game is now gone. Many players who got introduced to the game during its earlier years were playing the game blind, with very little knowledge and maybe with settings such as fog and low render distance, making the game look far more scary. These days, if something weird happens, you can just switch to spectator mode and investigate, something which you really couldn't do without mods back then. In modern times, Herobrine is no longer seen as a legend he once was, and simply returned to being a myth, part of the nostalgic memories of millions around the world. But while the legend has died out in the past years, his legacy is forever cemented in the game, never to be forgotten. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Be sure to subscribe and leave a comment if you did. Join the Discord if you want. Thank you all so much for watching.